In this video, I'm going to show you how to transform your Anki into this using just a few simple free plugins. If that piques your interest, stick through the whole video and I'll guide you through. Welcome to Jozu Jules. My name is Jules and I aim to share tips and tricks while learning Japanese with the goal of documenting my progress and helping you save time. So if that sounds up your alley, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any new uploads. Alright, so let's get into it. Here's our starting ground. This is what your Anki should look like. It's just a default Anki on dark theme. We're gonna need to download 3 things here. Number 1 is the main plugin called Beautify Anki. This will turn your Anki to look something like this. Number 2 is Review Heatmap. This will add the little chart here for you. I actually find this very useful to keep your streak going so it's not just for cosmetics. And number 3 is Notepad++. This is a text editor that we're gonna need in order to change some of the code from these 2 plugins. Okay, so in order to get Beautify Anki, you can check the link in the description. What we're not gonna do is get this code. We do not want to get this because this is outdated. What we instead want to do is go onto the GitHub of Beautify Anki, and you can just click on this one right over here. Beautify Anki version 0.32 beta.zip. This one here. Once you click on this one, the download should start. The same thing for Review Heatmap. We don't want to download it off of the Anki web one because this one is actually bugged. Instead, we're going to be downloading a fork of the original code made by Sins0. So this will also be linked in the description. Click on this one here to start the download. The reason we download this one instead of the regular one is because on the regular one, the colors of the heat map get inverted when you're on night mode. And finally, for Notepad++, just click on the latest version and just click on this download right over here. Okay, so what this should leave you with is these 3 files. I should also mention that you will need Winrar to unzip the zip file. I guess I'll also link this in the description in case you don't have Winrar for whatever reason. You can just hit download Winrar right here and install Winrar. So the first thing we're going to do is install Notepad++. Simply double click on this installer and follow through the steps. I'm not going to do that because I already have it installed, so I'm just going to delete it for now since I already have it. Next up, let's go into Anki. We're going to go up into Tools and click on Addons. This is going to pop up the Addons window right over here. Next, click on Install from File, and here you can click on Review Heatmap and install the Review Heatmap plugin just like that. I already have this installed, so I'm just going to simply re-enable mine. Once you have Review Heatmap installed, we're going to need to take a few steps to install Beautify Anki. First, click on Review Heatmap and go into See Files. This is going to pop up the config file of Review Heatmap, and we're just going to use the bar up here to go back a few files until you see all these numbers with Review Heatmap. You may not see all these numbers if you don't have any other plugins installed. However, this is basically where all your plugins are installed to. Here, we're going to create a new folder by right-clicking and going to New Folder. And we're just going to name this Beautify Anki. Don't put any spaces in between. Double click on this one. Okay, now bring up your beautifyanki.zip and we're going to open this up with Winrar. We're going to take all these files and drag that into the new Beautify Anki folder. Now we can close off the Winrar file, and back in the Anki add-ons bar, let's close this and reopen it just to see if it's been added or not. And there it is, right there. Beautify Anki has been added. We're going to enable this and then close off Anki to restart it. Okay, perfect. So everything has installed correctly. However, you may experience an issue where everything here is flickering. So I want to go through quickly how we fix that first. For instance, when I first installed this plugin, I ran into this issue where the top bar was just like wiggling up and down. But fortunately, I did find the solution and I can guide you through it. So if your deck bar is wiggling like this, here's what to do. The first thing we have to do is go into the Beautify Anki config folder. So we do that by going up into Tools, Add-ons, Beautify Anki, Show Files. This will bring up the Beautify Anki config. We're going to go into User Files, Assets, CSS, and then we're going to need to open deckbrowser.css. What we're going to do is right click on this and hit Edit with Notepad++. This is going to bring up this big scary window of some code in it, but don't worry. What we're looking for is this one called deck row, and we're going to change min height from 50px to 100px. Hit Control S to save, and we can close off Notepad++. And to see whether that worked or not, just reopen Anki. You should see that the main deck bar should be much bigger now, and it should stop the flickering. Okay, so we got a few things we want to configure here. For me, here's what they are. So number 1, the font in English is horrendous. Number 2, the font size of the UI is tiny. Number 3, I want to change the background and make a transition between several backgrounds. Number 4, each deck should have its own image instead of just the default Anki icon. Number 5, if I click on a deck, the background of each deck should be different. Number 6, the heat map is missing the background, so it's making it a bit hard to see. In order to configure all these things, there's a very handy guide that I'll link in the description, but I'll also run you through it in this video. First of all, in order to change the theme, we're going to go into Tools, Add-ons, click on Beautify Anki, and then click on Settings. This is gonna load up this file here. We're just gonna scroll down to the bottom and change theme. I like default, so I'm gonna just switch it back to default. We're gonna hit OK, we're gonna close this, and we're gonna reload Anki. Okay, that's great. That fixes a lot of issues. The font is no longer ugly, and the theme looks a lot more like something I would like. However, the font is still really tiny, so I wanna increase the font size. Oh, and actually, before we continue, we can spice this up even further by going into Tools and Add-on, going into Beautify Anki settings, and then turning animation to true. I'm gonna restart one more time. And what that did is made the background animate between 5 different images. Pretty cool. Okay, so in order to increase the font size, we're gonna go back into the Beautify Anki folder, go into User Files, Theme Settings, and choose the specific theme that we're using. So mine is default.json. Right click and then hit Edit with Notepad++. This folder is gonna open up. We're gonna change deck font size from 15 to whatever. So I'm gonna just try 18, see what happens. Restart Anki. Okay, great. See, the font size is a lot bigger. It's a lot easier to read now, and everything works. Okay, so 3 things left. We want to change the deck icon, we want to change the background, and we want to add an individual background for each deck. This is very simple to do. What we're going to do is go into User Files and then Assets. In the Assets folder, you're going to see 5 images here named background 0 through 5. We're simply going to change these images into something that we like. So I have these 5 images prepared right over here. I'm simply going to drag those in to replace the other 5 images here. When you're putting in your own images, please note a few things. Number 1, the file size of all the images that I use are extremely tiny. They're all under 100 KB. This ensures that Anki loads this quickly. Number 2, all of these images are in .jpeg format, not .png. Only use JPEG, otherwise I'm not sure if it can read it or not. And number 3, you have to name these specifically the way it's named right now. So background, then background 2, 3, 4, and 5. A quick example of how I got these images, by the way, just in case you want to pull some random image off Google, it's probably going to be too big. So let's say I want to set the Great Wave of Kanagawa as my Anki background. We're just going to save this image real quick. And so this image, for example, this is already 2.24 megabytes, which is humongous compared to my 54 kilobyte image. Also, you may want to blur it as well. So here's what we're going to do. If you have Photoshop, load up Photoshop. If you do not have Photoshop, load up photop.com, linked in the description. That's P as in the vegetable. We're going to import our image into Photoshop. Unlock it first, clicking the little lock icon. If you're on Photop, the steps should be relatively similar. First thing we're going to do is add the blur on. So I like Gaussian blur. Just going to blur it by, say, that much looks fine. Okay. And we're going to hit OK. Then we're going to go up to File, Export, Export As. Choose the format as JPEG. Set the quality to very poor. We don't need such a massive file size. So what I like to do is take the original file size, which is 3859, and divide that by 2. We get 1929.5. Just enter that in, and it should automatically set to 1930. This halves the resolution. Now let's hit export, and then you save that image. Okay, and the image that we just made is now 37 kilobytes. So if I wanted to use that image as my wallpaper, I could simply drag this into here, and I would name this background 5 or whatever. And so while we're here, before we restart our Anki, let's add in all the other pictures as well so we don't have to restart Anki a million times. Deck backgrounds and deck icons are where you will be looking at. Deck icons is just the icons, deck backgrounds is the different backgrounds for each deck. Okay, so in deck icons, you need to name each icon the exact same as the deck name. The deck icons can be .pngs as well, however, I would keep the file size small, otherwise it'll take forever to load. So, for example, all-in-one kanji -heisig RTK bracket new edition 6 bracket. If I wanted something for this, I would need to have the exact same name. So this one right here is all-in-one kanji -heisig RTK blah blah blah, exactly the same way it's named. This default.png one is just going to be the default. I don't like this one. I'm going to switch mine to the Japanese flag since I'm using this to study Japanese. The Aobuta deck here is exactly the same, Aobuta. And for the deck backgrounds, the same rule applies. You need to name this the exact same. So I only have a different one for Aobuta, so I'm just gonna drag the Aobuta one in. This one uses a JPEG, so for a rule of thumb, I guess all the backgrounds use JPEG files. Okay, so now with all those in, let's close off our Anki and reopen it. And voila, magic. We now have backgrounds that animate between each other. We have different deck icons. And if we go into the Aobuta deck, you can see that the Aobuta deck has its own background as well. Again, there are more customizations available that I didn't touch on this handy webpage over here. If you would like to customize your Anki even further, simply follow the guide on this webpage. I hope you found this video useful, and if you're studying Japanese, then why not check out these 2 videos as well? Make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed this video, by the way. Cheers!